Welcome to Off Screen. Today we're reading Afterlife by Joss Whedon. A dead scientist's mind is implanted into the body of a younger man to continue his research project. One problem, though. The younger man is a serial killer.
So what do we want to say about Joss Whedon?
So I think everyone knows who he is.
I don't know, like non-Hollywood people, I don't think know who
Buffy
he is.
the Vampire Slayer, Dollhouse,
Firefly,
Serenity,
and most recently The Avengers.
Yeah.
But he's really, I think he's perceived as like a screenwriter's writer. Like
Okay.
he's really respected for his craft. He's seen primarily as a writer, even though he's also like a creator, like producer and director now.
Right.
But I think he's still seen as like a writer first and foremost. Wouldn't you say?
He's apparently done a lot of script doctoring and touch-ups on scripts.
Right.
There's a lot of credits that you wouldn't immediately associate with him. At least I wouldn't. He's written for Roseanne,
Toy Story,
one of the Alien movies. So, yeah, a screenwriter's writer. This was the screenplay that he wrote and sold way back in 1994.
before he really had made his name, I guess, right?
This was before Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So should I do the summary?
Yeah, sure.
This is a pretty long summary.
Oh, wow.
Which I know
Go for it.
you're more in favor of that, so, okay. Daniel Hofstadter's pioneering scientific work is suddenly cut short when he dies in his mid-50s of a nondescript chronic illness. He's offered a second chance at life when his lab partner, Leonard, transplants his mind into a younger, healthier body. The operation is a success, however, Daniel's very existence is now highly confidential. He can't even tell his grieving wife, Laura. Rather than returning home, Daniel is now confined to a secret facility where he continues his work with the help of several peers who he thought were also dead. Peers whose minds, like his, have since been transplanted into younger, healthier bodies. But life without Lara is too much for Daniel, and, using his newfound strength, he soon fights his way out of the laboratory. Upon escaping into the real world, Daniel finds that his new face is recognized even in the most remote towns. A news story on TV, followed by a bit of research at the local library, reveal that Daniel's new body belongs to a recently executed serial killer named Jamie Snow, aka the Snowman. In addition to Leonard and his cronies from the facility, now the police are on the hunt for him too. It doesn't help that Daniel is working his way east, towards Cape Cod where he lived with Lara, but also the region of the Snowman's many murders. Even when he finally reaches his wife, she refuses to believe his outrageous claims until Daniel recites several intimate details of their relationship which only he could know. Once convinced, Lara takes Daniel with her to a cabin in the woods belonging to a family friend where they can lay low. Meanwhile, back in the secret laboratory, Leonard's other transplant patients begin to turn against him. As it turns out, all of them were given the bodies of executed criminals whose bloodthirsty minds have begun to resurface. The facility's security staff barely contain the violence, but not before one of them kills Leonard in a fit of rage. Kendrick, the head of security, takes it upon himself to put an end to the whole misguided program, beginning with the elimination of Daniel. Indeed, Daniel himself now struggles against visions and memories from the Snowman's murderous past. Much to Lara's horror, he puts his violent episodes to use against the police who have now caught up with them in the cabin, right at the same time that Kendrick closes in. Daniel and Lara manage to escape the cabin, but all three opposing forces finally collide in a nearby barn. Daniel brought them here for a reason. Supposedly it's the site of all the Snowman's murders, and sure enough, when he arrives, he finds a woman bound and gagged inside. But it wasn't Daniel or the Snowman who brought her here. No, in all his visions from the killer's past, Daniel has discovered that the Snowman was in fact innocent. He was framed by a detective named Moody, the same cop who caught him in the first place, and he's now caught up with him at the barn. Daniel kills both Moody and Kendrick's top man in a fight, burning down the barn in the process. Laura saves the kidnapped woman just before the whole thing collapses. Though Daniel also escapes, he's been mortally wounded in the fight, and promptly but peacefully dies in his wife's arms. Much later, after Kendrick has covered up the failed mind transplant program with the help of the U.S. government, after Moody is arrested for the supposed Snowman murders, Jamie Snow finally comes to visit Laura at her home. Apparently, despite Daniel's death, Jamie's body lived on, now with its original mind fully restored. He has a few of Daniel's memories left over too, and he assures Laura that when he died, he wasn't afraid. This time, Daniel's second, he died happy. How's that?
Sounds good. I think, though Daniel also escapes, he's been mortally wounded in the fight.
Yeah.
And promptly but peacefully dies. I think his memories or whatever eventually just yielded back to, it like wore off.
So you don't think it was the injury that killed him? You
No.
think it was just, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I guess
Because it was just like,
that's more
what happened to him happened to all of the other dudes.
that's more in line with what the other people experienced, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think of it that way. That
So
makes more sense.
It was basically like a mind mask that they placed into the bodies. So they put Daniel's mind, they laid that over Jamie's mind, but eventually that wears off.
Okay.
And Daniel recognized that he couldn't keep going on.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah,
That's how I saw
think
it, at least.
That's good. Okay.
So he acquiesces and bids his final goodbye to Laura.
Yeah.
And dies for a second time.
Yeah. Okay. So overall,
But yeah.
what did you think?
I thought that was nicely written.
Thank you.
The movie? Or the screenplay?
Yeah.
Less of a fan.
Huh?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. Maybe it was because my internet was cutting out for...
You didn't just download it?
No, I downloaded it, but it was just still a bad experience. But no, overall I didn't care for it too much. I found it entertaining, but I found it entertaining enough, but I guess I didn't really love it. Did you care for it more?
I liked it. I thought this was one of the more fun scripts that we've read, which I feel kind of guilty saying that, I guess, because obviously this is the most famous screenwriter whose work we've read, but
I don't think you need to feel guilty about that.
I think he's famous for a reason. I think this is a pretty good screenplay, especially
Yeah.
like for a really early screenplay of his. I think it's pretty strong. I think it has its faults, but yeah, overall I thought it was pretty entertaining and fun.
I guess I had less fun with it, would be the problem. I don't really understand why... Like, I know Jamie, his body is 28 and really fit, but Daniel is basically doing, like, superhuman things throughout the movie. Running, like, from the police, like, jumping.
Yeah.
Like, he's described by a mall cop as Tarzan.
And there was a part at the end in that barn fight scene where not only him, but just everyone involved seemed like superhuman. Like he...
Yeah, Laura, too, who's like a 57-year-old woman, is like darting left and right.
Well, never mind that, but like he throws that cop onto a thresher and impales him on these spikes.
Oh, yeah.
And then the guy still has the strength in him to like punch him in the face or something afterwards. I forget. And then like Daniel himself falls on top of him on the thresher as well and gets like impaled on it, and then he just like climbs off and he's okay. And then I think Bo, that government agent dude, gets like hit in the face with a shovel, and he's still cool after that.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
I mean, I guess you have to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah. Like everything else in this story, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, what were like your main problems? Was it like logical stuff?
It didn't really amount to much on a thematic level for me. I guess if you try to look at it just as like an action movie, then it's fine.
I don't think it's supposed to just be an action movie, though. You know, I think it's supposed to be kind of a thriller.
Yeah. It
Which
is pretty action heavy, though.
Which you would think, though, that thrillers are, I guess, more intellectual sometimes, and this is not very intellectual. It's like conceptually really cool, and it's like a fun premise, but yeah, you're right. There's not much going on like thematically. His character's arc is like really, it feels really lazy, kind of like they talk about when he's...
Does he have an arc?
Well, here's as much as I can make of it. They say at the start when he's with his wife that his work has always kind of distracted him from his relationship with his wife.
Right.
And he's always kind of put that first. But then when he's revived and he no longer has her, he realizes what he's missed all this time. And so he very consciously turns his back on his work, which that's the whole point. He was revived, is to continue his work.
Yeah.
But he abandons that in search of his wife.
Right. So his character development consists of dying and then being resurrected.
No, not exactly. I mean,
and then he's like, "Oh, I could be doing all this work that I've been wanting to do all along, but no, now that I'm dead, I think I'm going to pay attention to my wife again."
but he's alive. He's not dead. I mean, he died, and then he was brought back to life.
And then his mind was implanted into another dude.
And then he has some really righteous cabin sex with his wife.
He does have some.
That was weird. Like they got past the weirdness of him being in a different body, and to them having sex very quickly. I felt like
there was that one nice touch because it's made very clear that his new body is much better looking.
Yes.
Much more fit than his old body. But it's nice. It was nicely written how his wife said that like she preferred his old body.
That was nice.
And it seemed genuine. Nice. It seemed like a genuine touch. Her character was pretty well done, I felt like.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I really did like too though? When he was first explaining what happened to him, to his wife, all of that I thought was handled really nicely. Like he's doing it very secretly and very gradually because all the time that he's on the run, the government is like after him and they're trying to keep him from talking about what happened because it's all very classified.
Right.
So he like plants a listening device in her car and talks to her through that.
Now how, because they're watching her car and they're watching her. Now how did he get to the car and plant that listening device and then get back out?
Never mind that.
That's not important.
No, but that's not what I was going to say was nice.
And, well, let me just, if I may interject.
You did.
Sarcastically.
So, yeah.
So he's able to do that without being seen. But then he also decides it's a good idea to go buy some hair dye from a mall. A crowded mall.
That was earlier. He hadn't become accustomed to life on the run yet.
No, I'm pretty sure he was on the run because he was buying hair dye.
Yeah, I know.
And he knew everyone was looking for him, and he walked into what is described as a very crowded mall.
Yeah, that was bad. That was a bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
When
he had a friend at the time, he could have sent Cassie into the mall.
Who?
His hitchhiking friend.
Oh, that was so weird and like just out of the blue. That just like came and went and was really weird to me. But anyway, let me get back to what I thought actually was good. So he like has his wife on this listening device thing. He's talking to her. Doesn't say that it's him yet because obviously it's not his voice and she won't understand yet. But when he does explain it to her, they don't actually like have the conversation in dialogue. You just kind of see her from a distance reacting to whatever it is he's telling her. You know he's telling her what happened, and that's enough. You don't hear the actual dialogue, and you just see her reaction, and I thought that was kind of a nice touch, a nice way of doing it.
Yeah.
And then she still has some reservations when they actually meet and is very freaked out, obviously. Yeah. But then another thing that I thought worked really well was that whole idea of him telling her really intimate and specific details about the relationship as a way of proving who he was. It served two purposes. Obviously, it proves to her that it's really him, but then it also helps us as the reader know more about their relationship and their past. So that was a really clever, nice little device, I thought.
Okay.
But yeah, the thing with the mall and a few of those like action sequences felt really long and drawn out and ultimately pointless as far as the plot was concerned. It was just like...
He drove his car into a train and then walked away.
That was crazy too. I forgot about that. Yeah. He like... And then he like climbs underneath the train, right? And then he just drops into the tracks and like lets it roll over him. And then, you know, the cops thought he got on the train, so they keep following the train.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that was also very crazy. But yeah, like none of that action stuff. There was that whole chase scene in the mall as well. There were two scenes where he went to a store, tried to buy something, got recognized, and the gun, or the store owner pulled out a gun, basically, I think is what happened both times.
Right.
And yeah, it didn't amount to anything plot-wise. It was just like an obstacle for him, which was kind of annoying. And yeah, they were pretty long and elaborate. And
yeah,
took a while
maybe
to
those
read.
look cool on screen. I don't know.
I guess. I was also hung up earlier in the second act, I guess, right after he escapes the whole facility, with the question of why he didn't just turn himself in. Like, it didn't even really occur to him. I think the story tried to set it up in such a way that by the time he had the opportunity to turn himself in, he had already kind of, like, incriminated himself because he got into, like, a big fight with that first store owner that recognized him. So he already kind of looked guilty and maybe he was afraid to turn himself in. But I felt like, you know, the person whose body he has was executed.
Right.
The police would have to be pretty crazy to actually think that that's really him. And for him to try and, like, explain his situation, I feel like that would have had a better chance rather than just him
then
immediately
I think he
going
runs
on the
the
run.
risk of the CIA, government, military, whoever the bad guys are, them coming in and just pulling rank on the local police officers, and then he's captured.
I guess that's a good point. I didn't think of that. I mean, I was gonna say, well, they're after him anyway, but yeah, if he was actually detained by the police, if he turned himself in, that would make him just like a sitting duck for the government people. Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
And I guess it's not important, but we never learn anything about like what type of science they're doing or like
that did bug me too, actually. Like if it's important enough to transplant his mind into somebody, what could he be working on? They never explain what kind of research he's doing or what kind of a scientist he is.
I don't know. The whole thing kind of felt generic to me. I don't know. Maybe it was a good version of this movie, but I feel like I've seen this movie before. I think the plot twist with Moody was kind of predictable. Maybe it's because it's very similar. Well, maybe not very similar, but kind of similar to the one in The Claim that we just read, where the nice-seeming cop turns out to be actually the bad guy.
Yeah, I guess.
I was up on that pretty early.
That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. That final twist of Moody framing Jamie for the murders. That was crazy. That was too much. And the fact that like there was a girl in the barn all tied up when they got there, like what? That seemed so pointless. Just like
the point is that Moody like traveled. What? How far did he travel? A really long ways just to like because he's so insane that he just has to stage another murder.
Yeah, and after he had already framed Jamie and Jamie had been executed, why would he keep killing people?
Well, no, this was the first time that he was killing again.
Was he killing again because Jamie was on the loose again?
Yeah.
I still think
that's how I read it.
Maybe, but that's still so ridiculous and like
that's ridiculous. Yes.
Just a really artificial way of bumping up the tension in that scene, that final climactic fight scene, which was already too
chaotic,
crazy. Yeah, because there were already three sides fighting against each other. See that was a bit much. I agree. I have a couple observations that I thought were, I don't know, they're not really good or bad. They're just interesting to me.
Okay.
So there are two parts. One is on page 66.
Mm-hmm.
So it says in the description line or in the action line, Daniel is exhausted, maybe a little changed. And I thought like that seemed kind of lazy. Like changed, like in what way? It didn't really say. Yeah. And
then we never really see the way in which he's changed.
Yeah. I kind of didn't like it, but then at the same time, it was at least reassuring to me that the writer had it in mind that there should be some character development going on. I think that goes a long way. Like, I think it's kind of lazy, but for people reading the script, I feel like that might be a good sign to them that the writer cares about character development.
Right.
Even if he's not doing it very well. And the kind of people that are making decisions about what to buy are not always great writers themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I personally don't have a problem with that line.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is in what follows, which is no character development.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I had a sort of similar observation about, I guess there are two other places. One is on page 80, which is a scene where, with Bo, who is like one of the government agents who's after Daniel, and he's kind of like scolding two of his cronies for screwing up and letting Daniel get away. And there's this ridiculous part where one of the two cronies has like a wound. He's got like a cut on his arm, and they're in like a diner or something. So Bo takes up a bunch of salt in his hand. He like pours out some salt, and he like licks it, and it says in the action line, it says yummy. And it's just really bizarre. But then he ends up like using the salt and rubbing it into the guy's cut, like as a way of punishing him.
Which is just really sadistic.
Yeah, definitely really messed up. But I thought it was kind of funny reading that yummy. It just felt like the writer was having fun.
Okay.
Which, again, despite the quality of the writing, I think that helps when you're reading and you can tell that the writer is enjoying himself.
And yeah, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be letting myself be bogged down by this, but like the bad guys are just like cartoonish bad guys.
They are
like they're given like they're theoretically like government employees. Like
yeah,
in real life they'd be more nuanced than like the type of dude that like rubs some salt into a wound, literally.
Yeah. And there were several.
But I mean, maybe from the yummy, like I'm not supposed to take it on that level.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say I did think it was a little too much after several more times of that same sort of thing happening, where you've got one of the bad guys like criticizing one of the other bad guys for his ineptitude, which I think is supposed to be. I think he's kind of trying to mask the weakness that you're talking about, the kind of like weak writing that, he has to let Daniel get away for the sake of the story. They can't catch him yet. And so he kind of like hangs a lantern on it, as they say. Meaning like someone actually in the script calls out that weakness in the writing. But in this case, it's like, yeah, he's criticizing these two guys for being really crappy at their job. And it's supposed to be kind of funny, and I think it's a way of masking that weakness in the writing.
But what worked for me about, I haven't seen this new Avengers movie, but what worked for the first movie was that while that tone was the same, we're already a little invested in the characters because we've watched like all of their individual movies, probably. So the audience investment is already there. So he doesn't need to build that as much.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Whereas in this, it just comes across as flippant to me. But I haven't seen a lot of his work. I guess he wrote or co-wrote The Cabin in the Woods. I saw that. Yeah. I was not a fan of that.
Really? I like that.
And I didn't care for it.
I thought it was really ridiculous but fun. And like, clearly not taking itself super seriously.
No, I just thought its observations were pretty obvious.
What do you mean its observations?
Like, how it was
about the genre?
About the genre.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
That goes a long way for me. If I know that it's making fun of itself, I will let it get away with a lot of things.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, I haven't seen Buffy, which I think most people would agree is like his crowning achievement.
I wonder if maybe TV is more of what you're looking for, like in the character development sense. Like, I think he does go to greater lengths to develop his characters, but maybe by contrast, when he's writing a screenplay, he knows he's not going to have that much time and resorts to more like stock characters.
I mean, I don't even necessarily need a character development or a lot of it, but I just didn't really feel any reason to be invested in this. And it just felt like, well, maybe a decent and entertaining enough example, but still just a generic kind of action thriller. Mm-hmm. Personally.
You gotta admit, though, that is a hooky premise. Like, if you just explain it in one sentence to, like, a film executive, they're gonna gobble that up.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it'll make for a mediocre movie.
Do you think it always will? I mean, I think premises like that, even if they are really, like, high concept or really like catchy sounding, I think can be really good, and not just in a shallow way.
comes across as very movie-ish, I guess. But I don't know. It was an entertaining enough read. I don't want to sound too critical.
One other thing,
Yeah.
I thought it took a while for them to establish that he was actually going to find his wife after he escaped.
Okay.
I mean, they were pretty clear about the fact that that was why he escaped. But then it was weird to me how long he spent just like wandering around trying to disguise himself or trying to figure out who he was, because he went to like I said in the summary, he went to the library and like looked up who he was. I felt like at this point that's almost irrelevant. Like, yeah, it helps him
It's
know.
probably good to know.
It helps him to know why people are recognizing him, but there's not much he can do about it.
But yeah, I don't know. It just bothers me a little when the protagonist is smarter than everyone else. And then, in this case, the protagonist is also, like, just in better shape and better fighter than everyone else.
Yeah, that was a little unfair, I guess.
Like, Daniel's never been a fighter. Why is he so good at fighting now? Just because he has a better
That's
body.
a good point. It almost felt like a Bourne identity or something. He suddenly was like pulling off
that.
all these crazy fighting moves.
Now he's like beating the shit out of.
Had that movie come out yet? I guess 94.
So yeah, that is kind of maybe the best version of this.
That's too different of a movie. Well, I don't know. I guess it has a lot of similarities, but I think they're trying to do very different things. I think this one is much more self-aware and fun. I thought the first act did a pretty good job of building the premise and setting it all up. The whole operation and him waking up in the new body was handled well. They do a lot of POV shots, which would be kind of cool to see, of him waking up as this new person. And then when they tell him he has to stay here and he can't find his wife again, he can't go back out into the real world, that was a really cool moment for me, and I thought that they did that pretty well too, where he's already among all these other peers, and like some of them
including
really,
his mentor and his best friend,
important to him. He sees that they have all already accepted this life, like this secret new life. Mm-hmm. That really helps me, I think, just as the reader, to believe it that Daniel would go with it. Which, of course, ultimately he doesn't. But I think they had to sell that as hard as they could, that this is a thing that he might actually do, because he resigns himself to it at first, you know.
That's so brief.
It is, but I think it's important to see the appeal of both sides, and
I don't see why he decides to bounce so quickly.
What? His wife?
The Japanese doctor didn't have a wife?
I don't know.
I think they said he had a wife and like 2 daughters or something like that.
Yeah. Well,
this dude's got daughters.
I guess Daniel just has more heart.
Yes.
Verdicts?
So verdicts. What do you think?
I'm going to go consider on both of these, I think. Which, again, it feels like cheating a little bit to know who Joss Whedon is already, having read this. But, yeah, I would consider the script, definitely, even if it took some rewriting. Again, I think the premise itself at its core is really fun and very, like, simple and hooky, and it's kind of high concept, I guess, would you say? I just think there's definitely potential, even if it takes a little bit of rewriting. I think it could be really fun and cool.
Sure.
It's also I feel like it's good actor bait, in the sense that you get a role, you get 2 roles to play. Basically, one actor gets to play the killer and Daniel. You know,
right? Jamie and
yeah. So I think that could be fun to see. I think an actor would love to take on that part.
Cool.
So yeah.
I would go pass on the screenplay. I was not a fan, and I don't know, maybe a very mild consider for the writer. Maybe a pass. If I'm really being honest, if the name
if
Whedon wasn't attached,
I
probably would be.
And if this was your production company,
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
Well, I don't know how reliable this website is, but they said that this sold for what, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be my $1.5 million.
All right.
Put it that way.
Fair enough.
That said, I don't have $1.5 million, and I'm sure Joss Whedon does.
Yeah.
So he must be doing something right.
Yeah. All right.
So next week.
Yeah, so next week we're doing...
On Off-Screen.
Yeah, we're going to read another one from the most recent Blacklist, from the 2014 Blacklist. And it's called Yellowstone Falls by Daniel Kunka? I don't know how to say that.
Right.
After an apocalyptic event, a mother wolf is separated from her mate and the rest of the pack and has to protect her cubs from swarms of mutated humans.